Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I want to talk about VBACs and preparing for them and the dangers of evil obstetricians. So let's get into it. Hey guys, so for those of you who don't know, I'm currently a little more than 38 weeks pregnant, and I am going to be attempting a VBAC this time around. With my first son, I had to have an emergency C-section, which was so not in the plan. We originally were going to try for home birth, and then because it was my first delivery, we decided that we were going to do like a birth center situation, which, you know, was great and everything. But while I focused so much on where I was going to deliver and what interventions I didn't want, I really hadn't focused a whole lot on preparing my mind and body. And while all those things that I focused on were very, very important, I wanted, you know, limited interventions. I wanted an unmedicated delivery. You know, I'm not like an anti-vax person, which, you know, no shade to them because, you know, there's so much hate towards anti-vaxxers. Like, that's their business. And if these vaccinations actually work, then our kids are vaccinated anyway. Stop being so mean to them. But, yeah, so I wanted all of those things, but when it came down to actually having my mind and my body prepared for delivery, I think without even knowing it, I was terrified. And ultimately that stalled my labor. My water broke at home in the middle of the night, in the middle of the evening. It was about 10 o'clock at night. And I called my midwife. She came and checked me, and she said that, you know, it seemed like it was like a high up leak because it really was like just a trickle. So she said, you know, stay home. I hadn't started having contractions or anything. So we were really just kind of like, okay, no big deal. We'll just keep an eye on it and, you know, come to the birthing center in the morning. So I wake up the next morning and I think I'm starting to have contractions, which, you know, they start out quite light. And if you've never had a real contraction before, you don't really know what you're looking for. So we got to the birthing center at about 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning. So we're almost at 12 hours. My water has been leaking. I personally would never say that my waters had ruptured because it was so little water. And I have seen, you know, people's water break in real life. And no, it's not, oh, what is going on with this? It's not always like that big gush, you know, like you see on TV, but it's a lot of water, you know. It's not like little drips that I was seeing. So I wasn't really that concerned. So I labored there for I believe it was like 28 hours. And when I tell you it was intense, honey, it was intense. So hindsight being 2020, I really should have prepared myself more with birthing classes and just really practicing. Lately I've been practicing like hypnobirthing and really focusing on my breath. I did not realize, and it's because I have such a high tolerance for pain, but I did not realize that when I am in pain, I just stop breathing. And like one of the doulas that I've been talking to here in DC was saying to me, she's like, you have to remember to breathe for baby. Breathe for baby. If you can remember that, it probably will help you to stop holding your breath so much. It'll hopefully help me to stop. But I've been working on some, you know, learning some other techniques to help me get through. Anyway, long story short, we ended up having to go to the hospital for an emergency C-section. And when we went to the hospital, I was unaware that I was going to end up having a C-section. We were going in the hopes of, you know, getting the Pitocin, getting my labor to kick in, which it already had. I didn't even know until I took birthing classes this time that I had already reached transition, which is literally the only part of delivery of my laboring that I remember, because it was horrible. Like, it was so unbearable. I was shaking and trembling. Like, your body temperature is different. You are a little bit delirious. Like, I mean, so many things. I mean, it's kind of cool when you think about all the amazing things that our bodies do to cope and to bring life into the world. But my goodness, it was crazy, y'all. So we get to the hospital and they're like, okay, let's get her the Pitocin and epidural. And when they said epidural, I was like, no. And they said, you know, they were basically saying, well, sweetheart, you know, we're getting near the end here, and if you end up having to have a C-section, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is why I did not want to go to the hospital, then you're gonna either have to go under general anesthetic or you're gonna need this epidural. So of course, against my wants and desires, we went ahead and did the epidural, and thank God we did, because I ended up having to have that emergency C-section. But hindsight being 2020, if I'd have been a little bit more knowledgeable and prepared about my body and what it was capable of, I would have gone to the hospital probably 10, 12, 15 hours sooner, because then I wouldn't have been so exhausted. I could have gotten the Pitocin, and I could have had a vaginal delivery. But, you know, once again, hindsight, and we move on. I don't feel bad about having a C-section, and nobody should. A healthy birth and a healthy baby is a healthy birth and a healthy baby, period. And my son is healthy. He has no allergies. He's, you know, has a good appetite. He's growing well. He's 2.5 now. And, you know, that's it. But moving forward and coming here to the state of Virginia, I wanted to attempt another natural birth again. Well, in some states, and you have to really look out for this, in some states, if you had to have a cesarean section, it's mandatory that you deliver in a hospital the next time around. And I don't think that you have to continue that. It's just the first birth after, because they're afraid of, you know, uterine rupture and things like that. I say all that to say that if you're planning on doing a VBAC, or even if you're, you know, none of this has ever happened to you, but you are seeing an obstetrician for your prenatal care and your labor and delivery, be aware of their motivations and be aware of their knowledge, and be aware that be wary of if they have your best interest in mind, and if you guys are like-minded. Coming here, I researched a lot of the doctors in the practice that my insurance covers. And there was one doctor in particular that really stuck out to me, and I was like, oh, she's, you know, not only is she a Midwestern girl and we're about the same age, but she also has extensive experience with VBAC and low intervention. But my insurance had chosen a different doctor for me. And I just, you know, I had to make an appointment. I wasn't pregnant at this time. I decided, okay, I'll go see this girl and, you know, see how it works. She was cool. Wasn't nothing wrong with her. We got along just fine. And then I ended up getting pregnant. And still, there were really no red flags until just a few weeks ago. I had I think it was like my 35 week checkup, 34 weeks, somewhere in there. And I had lost, mind you, I've gained 27 pounds with this pregnancy, so that's a healthy weight gain. I show up in her office, and she never once asked me how I feel, how's my pregnancy going, none of that. And the first thing she says to me when she walks in this time, she sits down and she kind of huffs and puffs at me a little bit, and she goes, restricting our meals, are we? And I just kind of looked at her and I said, no. I had lost like 0.8 pounds. It was, and I really think it was just water. because normally my appointments are at 9:40 in the morning, and this time around they only had like a 12 o'clock appointment. So it was later in the day, and I probably had just lost some water, you know. And I kind of, at a certain point of her questioning, she asked me if I had a history of eating disorder. Now, I don't, but I can imagine that if I had, or someone else had, I'm sure I'm not the first person she's ever asked this to, guessing by how comfortable she was asking the question. That would trigger me if I had had an eating disorder. And she goes on to tell me, well, if you're going to attempt a VBAC, you know, when you go into the hospital, and this is literally how she's talking to me, when you go into the hospital, you're going to have to get a mandatory epidural. And I'm just like, first of all, this is my body. You can't tell me what you're going to give to me, what, you know, what I'm not going to take. But that's what she said. And the whole appointment kind of went on like this. And I didn't realize how upset I was until I left and got in the car and started driving away. And I just broke down and started crying. Don't let your doctors make you feel like that. And I'm not gonna sit here and say it's her fault, because a lot of these doctors really, you know, they're doing exactly what their job description says. They're practicing. They don't know. They don't know this stuff for sure. You know, and how could you? Everybody's body is different and, you know, whatnot. So moving on, I have switched to a different OB and am getting the care that I absolutely deserve to have. And I feel like that's what we all should do. So no, an epidural is not mandatory. They do, some anesthesiologists do suggest it. But it's not mandatory. If you do end up having to have a cesarean section and you don't have an epidural and it's too late, you will have to go under general anesthetic, but that's for you to make that calculated risk if that's what you want to attempt or not. And then that's it. Because if you do get the epidural, you're more than likely going to end up having the C-section, because your labor is going to stall. It plays tricks with your hormones and it will stall your labor. So make the choice for yourself. You know, make sure you get a doula, or someone that's very knowledgeable that can be there to advocate for you, because once you get in the throes of labor, it's going to be hard for you to stick up for yourself. And that in itself can hinder the progress of your labor. So that's one thing. Another thing is this whole scare tactic that the previous OB had given me. You know, she's like, oh, well, there's, you know, you have to be on the monitor. Well, duh. Okay, if I'm in the hospital laboring and they just want to wrap a monitor around my waist, why would I be upset about that? Don't paint a picture like it's something so horrible, and because I like natural things, that this is just something that's just so out of the norm or something. She's saying to me, oh, well, if you don't get on the monitor, there's a risk of uterine rupture and you could bleed to death. And your baby could suffer brain damage. And now you have a baby with no mom and brain damage. And I'm just like, heifer. All right, we done. But I digress from her. So yeah. So you will have to be on a fetal monitor if you're in the hospital, but that's a good thing. You know, that's totally fine. And my new OB did let me know that there's like a certain amount of time that you're on it, and then they'll give you like 45 minutes to be off of it or something like that. Or it might be 45 minutes on, like 10 minutes, I don't know. But you do get a break. So if you are the type of person that wants to walk around the whole birthing unit and all that, you can go right ahead and do that. And that's totally fine. I personally, I don't care if I'm on a leash that's 5 feet long. I'm not really, I even know from being in the birthing center, I didn't really enjoy having to go outside. Like they suggested that I go outside and walk around the birthing center. It's just not my style. I can do everything I need to do in my room. So either way, it works out. But if you have had a C-section, just know that they do suggest that you wait 24 months before giving birth again. And once you wait that 24 months, your risk of uterine rupture goes down to 1%. 1%. So don't let these people scare you, okay? And that's really all I came to talk to y'all about. I'm sorry, I'm looking a hot mess, but I thought I lost my mucus plug last week. I woke up this morning and realized that that was not true. I lost that junk today. And I've been having a lot of laboring symptoms, and I've also started producing colostrum. So I'm assuming that this baby's coming any minute, and I want to get my hair at least put away so I can take some cute pictures once the baby gets here. So yeah, so good luck if you are attempting to have a VBAC, and if you're just having even a regular delivery, just make sure that the people around you, make sure that your birthing team cares about you, and don't put so much pressure on your partner. You know, if they want to be involved, like my husband wanted to really be a part of the labor and delivery last time, but I was expecting him to be a little bit more prepared than he was, and that was my own fault for not telling him exactly what I needed. So if they want to be involved, help them by allowing them to prepare for your baby with you. You know, just keep them abreast to whatever it is that you want and what you expect, and give them some grace, because they don't know what you're going through, especially if you're, you know, with a guy. They have no idea what you're going through. So thank goodness they care enough to try. And yeah, that's about it. So it's nice talking to y'all. Hopefully I won't be such a stranger in the future. I just, you know, these last few weeks have been, a lot has been going on. My husband's father died, and yeah, and I've been nesting like crazy. So thanks for watching. I will keep you guys all posted on what's going on with the new baby and what's going on around here. And I love you. If you haven't already, please comment, share, and subscribe. Be blessed.